members of the General Council were first introduced to the topic of the next general chapter, merciful in community with the poor, there was at first almost a bit of silence, because the theme that was being proposed was a bit different than what we had expected, because the word merciful as the first word of the theme was not a word that is generally used within the congregation to describe our spirituality. And so it was at first perhaps with a bit of hesitation, but then we realized the possibility that the word gave to us. As a matter of fact, in the congregation, the word mercy, merciful, has not even entered into the vocabulary. It's not even found in our rule of life. And for that reason, most of us began to scurry to discover in the writings of Father Dejan whether, in fact, he had made use of the term. And to our great joy, actually, we learned that Dejan spoke a lot about mercy. Primarily in the context of sin and the experiences of God's mercy overcoming sinfulness. But then there is another aspect to his presentation which dealt with the great abundance, the kind of excess that one finds in God that allows this to take place. And Dejan actually in his writings quite frequently speaks about this abundance in God by speaking about the person of Jesus in his life, the type of activity, the healing of the sick, the abundance at Cana with the wine, but also the abundance with the multiplication of the loaves. And it's with the understanding that abundance that I think we can begin to understand a bit more what it might mean when we speak of the forgiveness of sins. The question of, is in fact forgiveness possible, must take into account that on the one hand we must take into account our what sin actually means in our personal lives. That the greatness of a fault and what it does to us as a person has an incredible effect on our character. And ultimately it can lead to a situation where we lose the capacity to do certain things. We don't have the liberty any longer, and therefore our capacity to act is being more and more diminished. On the other hand, when we take into account this notion of mercy, that also which comes through, particularly in the person of Christ, we become aware of a something that comes to us as a promise. Paul Ricoeur in his writings talks about the hymn of forgiveness, that there is in fact the possibility of forgiveness, but it comes to us from a height that we rarely take into consideration. So what happens when this capacity of God, this excess of God, this abundance or superabundance as Paul calls it, comes to meet us, it overwhelms what we have done, to the extent that it has the capacity to give us a new ability to act, a new capacity to regain something in our character which we had lost perhaps through sinfulness. So I think what Dejan was very much aware of in his writings, but what we are more and more aware of in our own time is that it is possible to overcome our guilt. It is possible to regain within us a capacity to act, and it's within that kind of a superabundance of God that we have been invited to enter. And that as such, I think what it opens up for us as a congregation is a capacity to rethink what that mercy of God might do in our lives, but also what it might do in the lives of others with whom we work, with whom we constantly are in contact. This is, I think, the great gift that this theme of the next chapter gives to us.